Hello and welcome to Comedy in a Nutshell, a podcast hosted by me, Mark Decado, and sponsored by no one and nothing. Consequently, having very low production value, but fortunately very high guest value in some of the best and brightest of the comedy circuit, telling me what comedy means to them. My guest this episode is a Brighton-based actor and comedian described by Chortle as a wild force of nature performer. She has an enviable joie de vivre, which has helped to secure her place on my ones-to-watch list. In a good comedy way, not in a pervy or terroristy way. It's comedian Kate McGann.
Hello.
Hello there.
How are you?
I'm great. How have you been?
Yeah, good.
So I'm just going to dive straight into it then. Yes, you happy?
Yeah, happy.
Let me ask you first of all, how did comedy come into your life before you saw it as a career? What was your earliest memories of comedy?
Well, I've always had like comedy in my life. I've always been a massive fan of comedy. And when I was 3, I said to my mum, I declared, if anything, that I either want to become an actress or marry David Bowie.
Yes.
Which I think is a fair, career choice.
Yeah, seems fair.
So I've always been on the stage, constantly. Like I've always been acting. I've always been fanning about on the stage. And I just remember watching like French and Saunders at Christmas and just falling about laughing and how much I enjoyed watching, Absolutely Fabulous and just comedy shows. That was my thing growing up. I loved it.
So when did you realise that it was something that you wanted to be a part of?
Well, the way it came about, me doing stand-up was quite weird. Mm-hmm. So I've been, acting, and I did an acting degree. And then my friend Gary had signed up to do a Groupon, like weekend stand-up comedy thing about 8 or 9 years ago, and was like, he wanted to do it for, I don't know, I guess he wanted to show off as well, but he's always been in performing and he wanted to like get a bit more confident. So he signed up to do this Groupon.
Yeah.
With his twin brother, Alan. So they're my best friends. And Alan couldn't do it. So I said, yeah, I'll come along. A stand-up really scared me. The thought of doing stand-up and being yourself.
Yeah.
And how scary that was. Like, I just thought I can't do that. Because so I've got so many friends that are actors and they're like, how do you do it? Like, it's just so scary. But I actually now weirdly find acting more scary than stand-up because, you have to remember all your lines and you have to make sure you're standing at this point and holding this prop at this particular time. So I feel like there's a lot more and pretend to be someone else. So there's a lot more going on. Whereas with stand-up, I'm just like, oh, hi, I'm a bit of a dickhead. So I did this like 2-day comedy course with a guy whose name has escaped me. It was quite Tim Dinkle. Yeah, that might be wrong, but it was really fun. And we did at the end of it, you did like a sort of 5-minute, mine was probably about 3. You did like a set at the what's it called? It's in Liverpool Street, Dirty Dicks in Liverpool Street.
Okay.
This was years ago. So I did about maybe like 4 gigs, but before that, I was a burlesque MC. So I was comparing, I used to do burlesque, I used to be in the cabaret scene. So I decided to put on a comedy night at the pub that I worked at, because they were like, oh, you do that sort of fannying around on the stage. So I met loads of comedians, but I wasn't actually doing it. I probably only did about 3 or 4 gigs because I still found it quite terrifying. So I actually took a big break. I took about a 4-year hiatus, maybe longer, because I just got scared. Well, actually, I'll tell you what it is. I dated someone who basically, I was really excited. I'd done one gig at the Blackout, like up the creek.
Yeah.
And obviously, like now it's kind of like, it's really zhuzhed up and it's a really cool club. And I went to see Dave Chappelle there and it was amazing. And it's just like very different to how it was about 10 years ago. Yeah. It was a little bit more rough around the edges, shall we say. So I did like one of their Blackout competitions.
Yeah.
And I did, I was on for 5 minutes and I didn't really know very much about gong shows or stand-up or what that entailed. So I filmed it and I put it on YouTube, and it was like my first proper set.
Yeah.
And I was dating somebody and I sent him this set, and I was like really proud that this, like, potentially this is a new hobby for me. Mm-hmm. And he said, I can't believe you've sent that to me. It's disgusting, because all I talk about, as you've seen my material, it's very cock heavy and it's quite rude. And he was genuinely insulted about it. Wow. And I was like, yeah, but I wrote that before I met you. Like, I didn't know who you were. And it's always embellished, and obviously it's not, factually all correct. It is a sort of, judged up a bit. Like, I'm not a total slag. But he made me feel so insecure and bad about it.
Oh, wow.
And that I literally sort of threw my toys out the pram, and I was like, well, I love him, and that therefore I've got to get rid of this. And so I deleted it off YouTube. Oh. I mean, it's probably a really shoddy video because it's from 10 years ago. But I just kind of went, well, no, because I love you. And that's how, that's how, what relationships are like. They're about sacrifice, and I won't do that anymore. And so I stopped performing. I stopped doing stand-up, stopped performing. Weirdly, we broke up. I don't know why, inevitably. And then I moved to Australia. So to get away from like literally the furthest point away in the world. And then I sort of saw loads of stand-up, and I loved it. And that's how, and then I did a play when I moved back home, back to Brighton.
Yeah.
And there's someone who I was in the play with, Sarah. She said, you're really funny, you should do stand-up comedy. So I started properly, like, again. Mm-hmm. And that's what sort of when I take it from, is that moment to 2017.
Yeah.
So, and the rest is history.
So you mentioned there the Blackout. Would you care to explain what that is, what that means?
So the Blackout, they might have changed it, but this is what it was when I was, when I sort of did my first couple of gigs in stand-up. So you get 2 minutes of doing, 5 minutes altogether, you get 2 minutes of material, and then you try and beat the Blackout. So you try and get to 5 minutes. And the point is, the light just came off at 5 minutes. So that's what I remember. But I know that now it might be sort of audience led, or that if it's like a gong show. So basically, like I've done, oh God, what was it? The Frog and Bucket gong show.
Yeah.
And basically they gave 3 people in the audience a red card, and then they hold it up, and if they don't like you, they don't like you. Yeah. And you have to get off stage after 3 have gone up. But I beat the frog, luckily. I got to 5 minutes. But it's so weird, I get so tense. Like I would quite happily do 20-minute sets and feel fine.
Yeah.
But doing a 5-minute gong show is the most terrifying experience ever.
Yeah.
And sadly, some clubs, that's the only way. Well, I mean, I hope there's different ways, but that's sort of the only way in. You have to go through this sort of baptism of fire to get in. But I find them really scary. I did do King Gong as well, which is at the Comedy Store. And I think I did like 2.5 minutes of like, my name is Kate. But oh God, it was horrible. It was really horrible. It was like gladiatorial. It was so scary. Like, I mean, I did 2 minutes, but all my jokes are quite long.
Right.
I don't really have like short, snappy jokes. They're sort of more stories.
Yeah.
So obviously it's easier to do like longer sets.
Yeah.
And that night at King Gong, Laura Lex was the MC.
Mm-hmm.
And I've since gigged with her, and she said that night, I remember it was just awful. Like one guy didn't even get to the microphone.
Oh, jeez.
It was so bad. It was so bad. He was like, I think he was like a guitar, like a singer, comedy singer. And he didn't even get to the microphone. He was like, and they went dong, 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 like a gong off, like 3 cards went up so quickly. I was like, oh my God. And he was like, oh, well, back on the train.
Oh, geez. Yeah. Tough crowd.
Yeah, it's horrendous. So any fledgling stand-up comedians, I mean, some people love doing them. Some people thrive on them. They're sort of adrenaline, but I can't ever again.
But only if they've got short, snappy jokes.
Yeah, so basically you have to get your first laugh in the first 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So you have to get your first joke out. And then, so I was trying to think of like a shorter joke, like short, and you know, you have to, I've got a good 5 minute set, but where you sort of take off all the chat in between and you just get it a bit more punchy. But I just don't want to put myself through that again. It's so horrible.
Yeah.
It's hard work. The one in Manchester is nice though.
Yeah.
It's like, I love the Frog and Bucket. It's great. It's such a cool venue. So yeah.
Yeah.
I might do that one again if I'm brave.
So maybe not gong shows, but you are familiar with competitions, aren't you? Because as we know,
yes,
2019 finalist in So Think You're Funny.
And
then 2021 runner-up for South Coast Comedian of the Year.
That's me. Yeah, because I did So You Think You're Funny, and it's so I basically got in under I've done less than 20 gigs.
Yeah.
But technically, obviously, because I'd done a few gigs sort of 8 years previously, some people that sort of knew me from before times were like, well, you've been doing comedy for years, but they didn't realize that I'd had like a 5-year hiatus.
Yeah.
And I'd only done 3 gigs. And I sort of, when I first started, I was emceeing, but I definitely wasn't doing material. It was definitely sort of garbling drunkenly as well, because I sort of felt like I needed Dutch courage, which was the worst thing to do. Drinking and comedy, for me in particular, is not a good thing because I didn't know what I was doing. So they sort of remembered me from before and went, you've been doing it for years. How did you get in? So I told Julia, who runs So You Think You're Funny, and said, well, technically I've been over 2 years, but I've only done like 18 gigs. And she said, yeah, that's fine. So obviously you have to be like under 20 gigs or doing it for less than 2 years to get in.
Right.
So I applied and I did my first heat in Angel Comedy Club, which was amazing. Such a nice venue. And then I was the only woman on the bill, which obviously, luckily, I'm really pleased to say that doesn't happen a huge amount for me. Like there's always a few women on the bill, which is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, 15 of us, 14 was very cock heavy. So, and then I got through, even though there was so many amazing, I remember Jack Bell, he's an amazing stand-up comedian. There was some really, really good performers on the same bill. I think Michael May as well, who's smashing it at the moment. He was on, I don't know if he was on the same competition as me, but we did a gig together at Angel Comedy, but he's brilliant. Just to say, he's brilliant.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did that, and then I got through to the semi-finals, won that. Charlie George got through on a wild card, and she is amazing. And then I got through to the final, got down to the last 8. And which is good, really good. So the winners, so Charlie George was a runner-up. Shane Byrne was second, and then Finlay Christie won.
Right.
And Finley's doing very well.
Yeah.
Well, they all are.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, it's a steamed company to be in.
Absolutely. Yeah. But there was some amazing people in the final. And Zoe Lyons emceed it. And she's fantastic. She's one of my favorite comedians.
Yeah. Do you still watch live comedy, or do you kind of analyze it, or can you take it at face value? Can you still enjoy it?
Yeah, I love it. I love watching comedy. I think you sort of have to be a fan of it. I think, it's such an enjoyable form, and like I think I might not enjoy it if I know the person is a bit of a wanker. And I'm like, oh, they're smashing this, and I hate them. No, I think the enjoyment might be scuppered a bit if I know that they're not a particularly nice person. But hopefully, I mean, I'm really blessed in the sense that all my comedian friends that I hang out with and that I've gigged with are so lovely. Everyone's just so nice to each other. And I just love going to see comedy gigs. Like, my partner's a comedian, and I go and see him, and I love watching him on stage. And he's seen me loads of times as well. We always think, does our set I bet you get a bit bored with watching it, but he's doing like a full Edinburgh run. Yeah. And so I'm going to be like there helping do tech support, whatever that means. I'll be at the back.
Flyering.
Yeah, probably tech support. I'll just turn the lights on.
Yeah,
that's it. So yeah, I'm going to be there every night. So I think by the end of a month, I'll be like, oh my God, I could probably do his entire show.
Do you find that yourself sort of analysing or criticising when you see it, you go, oh, you did that differently last time, or you forgot to say this?
Yeah.
Does that come up?
Yeah, we do it with each other. Like we're both really self-critical,
right?
So we'll come off stage and we'll really analyze ourselves. So we'll be like, I tend to record most of my sets and I'll listen back. Yeah. Which is super helpful, just because it means that I can hear where the good bits are and the bits that are like crap and need scrapping. Yeah. Because you don't sort of remember at the time. When people come off stage and go, oh yeah, smash that. And you're like, did you? Okay. Or vice versa. Or someone will come off stage and go, oh, I did a really shit job. And then you're actually like, no, you didn't. You can hear the laughter. You absolutely smashed. Yeah. So it is kind of good. It is a good thing to be self-critical, but also not. Sometimes we can be a bit too hard on ourselves. Yeah. But yeah, I do always come off stage and think, oh, that needs to be tightened up. That's too long. That bit needs to come out. That needs, it's just, and either just write it down or I record it and then I listen back later. Yeah. So you're sort of always adapting your set. Because I'll come up with, both Rich and I will come up with, ad-lib stuff at the time. And I'll try and, if I'm watching him, I'll try and just write it down in my notes. Right. Because it'll be an add-on or a topper or something that he's not said before, and it'd be really funny. Yeah. So I go, you have to keep that in. It was so good. And he won't remember, because he'll be like, oh, I don't know. He'll just come off stage and not remember what he was talking about, because it's all a blur. But I'll, like, if I'm watching and there's something that comes out, I'll go, oh, yeah, that was really good. Yeah. Try and remember that. We're just trying to help each other.
Yeah. Right. as you with your background as an actor, how much of your on-stage persona reflects your off-stage persona, or do you feel like I'm now Kate the character rather than Kate the person? How much does that differ for you, if at all?
Oh, I mean, like when I'm doing stand-up, it's sort of pretty much me.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not always like on all the time, but like that would be really annoying. So obviously you like dial it up to 11. But you know, obviously I've got stagecraft.
Yeah.
I've got stage presence because I went to drama school and stuff. I know how to like present myself and hold myself, and I will be a bit more open and a bit more, you know, I do this thing, it's really weird. So basically, right before I go on stage, I do like, I try and like open myself out as big as possible and just make like it's called angel pose in yoga.
Okay.
So I'll just try and make myself as big as possible. So you're sort of, your back's like straight and you're open. And I just feel like more myself and more engaging when I'm sort of more open.
Okay.
Rather than sort of, I mean, obviously it depends on what style of comedy you are, because obviously you've got some comedians that are, you know, deadpan and or quieter, and being big wouldn't sort of suit them. They're sort of quiet, you know, more insular. So I definitely think about my physicality on stage.
Okay.
But like, yeah, I do sort of calm down like once the makeup is off and once the hair goes up in a messy bun or a mistrunchable bun. And yeah, I'm watching telly. I'm actually really quiet at home.
Right.
I'm very boring. But I think you have to be, because you're in an environment where you're constantly socializing.
Yeah.
You know, you're surrounded by people that are out and having fun and drinking. So when you do come home, it is like you are kind of chilling, like an opposite. And
yeah.
You know, it's nice to calm down a bit. Because you're like hyperactive after doing a gig.
You talked a few minutes ago about, to use your phrase, some of the gigs being cock heavy.
Yes. Yes. Hashtag cock heavy. Yeah.
How have you found attitudes generally within the industry toward, let's say, diversity for genders, ethnicity, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, I find it baffling that women weirdly will come up to you and say, I don't normally find women funny, but you were really good. And you're like, do you know? So there is still very much a women aren't funny stigma. Yeah. You know, that if you have like a night where it's not billed as a female-led night, like it's not Funny Women, or there's a gig in Brighton called Funny Girls, which is brilliant. So it's not actually billed as that. It's just a night, and they might have like a male MC, an all-female lineup, and people will sort of, there's still that moment of like, oh, different, okay, oh right, oh, is that the sort of night that we're going to? Yeah. You know, and sometimes you get like, you know, big burly men being like, go on then, make me laugh. I mean, obviously they're hysterical by the end of the night, but I feel like they do that, you know, that bravado thing. Yeah. You know, you once, even if it doesn't matter what gender or race or disability or anything, if you've got men like that sometimes who are like, go on then, like aggressive lads, they will have that attitude to anyone. Like, so, you know, you will get people like that in an audience. Yeah.
Do you think that men in an audience are more ready to heckle or try and be engaged?
I feel that you know, in an audience, it depends on, you know, Friday and Saturday night.
Right. Yeah.
They're out with a big gang of them, and there's always one, and he's trying to be really funny in front of his mates.
Yeah.
and he's really funny down the pub, and you know, it's not that hard. And it's like this age-old thing of like comedians saying on stage, I don't come to your job and shout at you.
Yeah.
Like, I don't come to your office or building site or whatever the job they do and stand there and shout at you. Like, so shut up.
Yeah.
But hopefully, I mean, I definitely feel that in the industry, especially, there is a shift. There is very much an acknowledgement now of it. I mean, I'm really lucky that I live in Brighton, and it is, you know, we do have these amazing comedy clubs. We've got the Comedia, the Forge, and we, you know, there is really diverse lineups, and that's great. And it's so nice to see. Obviously, it's not everywhere up and down the country.
Yeah.
But I feel like there's a real kind of acknowledgement of like, yeah, we do have to have a really nice range of different acts, not just the straight white men.
Yeah.
Like, not that there's anything wrong with straight white men. I love them. I'm in love with one. But obviously there is change, and it's nice. I think it's you know, there is an acknowledgement.
Yeah.
And like when I find it weird now when I see a lineup, and you know, whether it's in like Portsmouth, I'm just saying, I live in Brighton, so I'm just saying, off the top of my head, Portsmouth maybe, or Eastbourne or somewhere like that, and I look at the lineup and it's just white men, and I think, was there no women available? Was there no people of color? Was there no, like, you know, anyone neurodivergent, like anyone available at all? I mean, it's just, it'd be nice to see some more balanced bills, you know, stretched further out than, you know, the main cities. That's what would be nice. But
okay, super.
Call me crazy.
Okay, so 2017 return to comedy, then you've got competition finalists, and then lockdown comes and everything shuts down.
Yeah, so 2019 I did So You Think You're Funny, and then it, like, being a finalist and stuff, and you know, you start to get momentum. I had gigs booked at the Comedia, which I was so excited about, because I grew up in Brighton, and the Comedia was like the place you went. Like, that's where you went to watch comedy. And you know, Stephen Grant running the Creator Comedy Club, like that, I remember going and just being like, this is just so much fun. Funnily enough, I went to sixth form college with Sean Walsh. So now, I mean, you never hear from him. You don't know what he's up to now, but he dabbles in stand-up comedy.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Just a little bit. So, I was kind of getting booked for bigger gigs, and I was literally, remember thinking 2020 is going to be my year.
Yeah.
Like, I was so excited to go into 2020. I had a really cool job at the time. I was working for Comic-Con. So comedy for me was always going to be a hobby, because I loved my job. I absolutely loved my job.
Yeah, you're the one.
Yeah, that was me. That was one person in the world. I worked with celebrities. I got to work on these massive, amazing events. But because of the pandemic, obviously, I was made redundant. They're non-existent. So I went to Chicago in March, and for Comic-Con, and I did a gig there. I did like a 10-minute spot somewhere in a comedy club, and I was just like, I'm an international comedian. And literally, I was thinking, 2020 is the year that I really like level up.
Yeah.
And then obviously it all went to shit. And I was made redundant from my job in September. And I didn't do any gigs at all during the pandemic.
No?
I didn't, like, nothing happened. I did like one online thing and I hated it so much.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It was right at the beginning and everyone was kind of doing Zoom quizzes and stuff.
Yeah.
Everyone was like really into it. Like, yeah, this will be fun. Like, it's so crazy. We're in our houses and we have to stay here. And I did this thing on Twitch. I can't even remember what night it was, but I did not enjoy it.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So yeah, I did that. And I just thought I'll just have a break. So I completely didn't do any comedy at all. And then I did like the following summer, like did we do one in 2020? I can't remember. It might have been a year later, but yeah, I did a gig outside when everyone was like, oh, we could do when the pubs opened.
Yeah.
I can't remember which lockdown it was in between. It's all such a blur.
Yeah.
Don't you think?
For sure,
like,
yeah.
You know, when everyone's like, what year are we in now? So I don't remember.
Yeah.
But basically, I did a really cool gig, and it was with a Brighton comedy. They're called the Comedy Cult, and it was outside, and it was just a really cool lineup, and everyone was just like, "Yay, we're comedy's back!" Yeah, I think that was 2020. Yeah, and then I did like a couple of outdoor ones in between the lockdowns. And then obviously at Christmas we all went back in, didn't we?
Yeah.
So I probably did about 2 gigs, 3 maximum. Yeah.
Wow.
And then it sort of picked up again.
Yeah.
Luckily. Thank God.
Yeah. I've been going over the shows that I've been to over the last couple of years. And I was looking down the list of dates. And I'm going, I can't have gone then. That can't be right. Wasn't there a lockdown on? Yeah. Or was there? I can't be right. It's very confusing.
Yeah. Maisie Adam does this really funny joke where she's like, it's like between the lockdowns, the one where you could go out, but you have to have a Scotch egg.
Yeah.
But you could have a drink, but you can't. You could go for a walk, but you couldn't do it. And it was like, oh my God. And do you remember that the rules that we were like, you can go out, you can go into a pub, but you've got to eat, but you can't eat. You can.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you can go out. You can't go in the pub, but you can look through the window. Or you could go in as long as you keep moving. What?
Yeah. Open a window.
So you mentioned doing a show in Chicago.
Yeah.
So how was that? How is American reception of your comedy compared to a British audience?
Well, I felt like I had to sort of slow down a wee bit because I speak quite fast. And then I do references. I realized that going through my set, it was only like my 10-minute set, but going through it, I was like, God, I have a lot of British references that I don't sort of think about.
Yeah.
So like one of them was pot noodle.
Yeah.
Where I was talking about, and then I asked my American friend, I was like, do you have a pot noodle here? And she said, no, we have cup of noodle. So I sort of had to change it a bit, and then a few references I had to sort of swap out to make them a bit more Americanized.
Yeah.
But yeah, it went well. Somebody at the end was like, oh my God, she's dirty. And I was like, I am. Thank you very much. Thanks for noticing.
So you've mentioned some comedians there that you've worked with. Who are the people that sort of really stood out to you who were inspirational, either in the style or just one joke that just laid you flat and you thought, yeah, this is my hero or she's my hero?
Oh God, there's so many. I mean, my sort of favorite comedians changes constantly, sure. Like who I like and who I admired growing up. Like it just changes. But at the moment, like I love Aisling B. I think she is absolutely flawless.
Yeah.
I absolutely love her so much. Obviously, I have to say Sean Walsh because I went to college with him. I just really like his style of moaning.
Yeah.
I'm quite sort of upbeat and that stuff, but yeah, quite like mine's a bit bluer. I've been trying to clean up my material And I was watching Sean's show, and I was like, oh yeah, maybe I need to make my material a bit less sexual. But yeah, I love Roisin Connerty.
Yeah.
She's fantastic. Maisie Adam, I've gigged with her so many times.
Yeah.
She absolutely floors me. Like some of her jokes, I'm like, beside myself. But I saw there's a comedian called Damien Clark, an Aussie comedian.
Yeah.
Damien Clark. I met him in Edinburgh in 2019, and we've been mates ever since. And he is one of the funniest people that I've ever met. He's so funny. It makes by the end of his hour show, your insides hurt. And then of course I have to say Rich Wilson. He's quite funny.
Yeah, he's all right. Yeah.
He's all right. And then I love Kiri Pritchard McLean. She's brilliant. I listened to her podcast with Rachel Fairburn.
Yeah.
And it's really, I haven't listened in ages, but yeah, it's all killer, no filler. So it's about serial killers.
Yeah.
But with a funny twist.
That's a good idea for a podcast. A crime podcast, but maybe, that's my podcast. I do that as well.
You do? Oh God, sorry to advertise another one on your podcast.
I'll crowbar a trailer in just there. I think that's the point to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hello and welcome to True Crime Diary, a light-hearted podcast on a serious subject. He gets a letter.
Oh yeah.
And the letter says, "I have stolen the Mona Lisa."
Well, it doesn't, does it?
Yeah.
Really? If I was doing it,
you put it under a big hat.
I would have turned up and wearing a massive hat, obviously.
Yeah. And then the pin is pulled, lever's dropped, down you go.
Does anyone want some toast?
True Crime Diary. A true crime podcast, more or less.
And then Rachel Fairburn as well. She's so funny. But there's just so many female comics at the moment who are just brilliant. I'll probably finish this conversation and then be like, oh no, I forgot to mention all these people. But there's so many to mention. There's too many to mention. But they're definitely people that I'm enjoying watching, like famous comedians that I'm enjoying watching their sets. And just they're I mean, I love that Aisling Bea is an actress as well. Yeah. Her TV show This Way Up is
fantastic.
So good. It's so good. Yeah. And she wrote it as well. And Roisin Connerty, I really loved Game Face. And I loved her in Afterlife as well. And I was absolutely gutted that she wasn't in the third season. But I just think she's an incredible actress and comedian. And just watching her show is I loved it, and I wonder if there's going to be a second series, and I hope there is, because I really enjoyed the first one. But that's because I want to do comedy full time and acting as well, because I am a trained actress, so it seems like a waste to not use my degree for something. My idea, I'd love to write something and be sort of, and Sarah Pascoe's show as well. I watched that, and I want to get a telly show.
You've talked a lot. There's a lot of contemporaries there, and you mentioned it's changed over time. So, who inspired you growing up?
Well, I remember watching Billy Colony with Mum and my brother, and just rolling up, like absolutely creasing up. I mean, he's an absolute icon. Yeah, he's a legend. As I mentioned at the beginning, French and Saunders. Yes. I'm watching like Ab Fab, and just so silly. I loved the sketches and things. It was just silly sense of humour. Yeah, and it used to really make me laugh. And then, yeah, I watched a lot of Eddie Izzard as well. Really, really love Eddie Izzard.
Yeah.
And my brother was massively into Jack D. So we always had like Jack D on, and had his like videos and DVDs and things. And I mean, obviously Jack D is very different to my style.
Yeah.
But just his joke writing is just brilliant.
Yeah.
It's so clever. And I love it how even though he's deadpan, he's not, and like Joe Brand as well, they're not deadpan consistently.
Right.
They sort of jump out of it and do that, I don't know, actually, and he sort of goes into his impersonations of different people. Because I've seen some people, I mean, not necessarily well-known comics, but when people go, oh yeah, I'm going to be a deadpan comic, which is fine, but when it's all the same note, it's quite hard. I feel like, I mean, maybe it's just me, maybe other people love that, but for me to listen to a whole show or a whole set that's just on one note, I'd be like, by the end, maybe I just find it really hard to listen to something. But yeah, no, I loved Jack D growing up, and like Lee Evans as well.
Yeah,
just the sheer energy. Yeah, he's like a tour de force.
Yeah. You mentioned sketch comedy there from French and Saunders. So tell me about World's Best Boss.
Oh right, yes. So I did a short film. It was going to be a series, but because I'm just busy and annoying, unfortunately, I'm only going to be like a bit character that will come in and out. But it's a short film. It's only 10 minutes long. It's so funny and it's so stupid. And it's about Jamie Phillips, who is a change maker, and he's a proper Brighton dickhead. You know the type. And he's just like, yeah, I'm just like an ego warrior and I'm amazing and I can just change the world, man. Just one recycling bin at a time. And he's played by the amazing Lewis Klein, who is so naturally very funny. He's just such a funny man. So we just improvised a lot of that. Like there was no script. We just sort of made it up on the spot, which is terrifying because I don't really do, improv comedy. I don't do sketch comedy. I always find it funny when you go and see an improv comedy troupe and they always do like the hands on the hips, like they look so pleased with themselves. You're like, all right, mate. Yeah, we're all funny. Like I recently saw The Noise Next Door. Yeah. And those guys are so clever. Like they do like loads of musical comedy as well, and like improvised. And it always makes me giggle when they do that, like hands on the hips, like ready to go, guys. And I'm like, oh god. But yeah, so we did this improvised, we filmed loads of stuff. We sort of knew where we wanted it to go, and basically Jamie Phillips is looking for a PA, and unwittingly I apply for this job and I don't really know what it is, and I played Daisy Wells, who has moved from the suburb, like from outer West Sussex to Brighton to kind of find herself. She was married and or engaged to a roofer, and she was always going to work in admin, and that was like her destiny, was just staying where she lived, where she grew up. I mean, it's ironic because I live in Brighton. I grew up in Brighton, but I have been away and I've come back, so that doesn't count.
That's what you imagine the people who come to Brighton, what their backstory must be like, surely.
So we just wanted that sort of thing of someone being like living quite a small existence. I mean, some people are really happy with that. Some people don't want to rock the boat. They don't want to go on stage. They don't want to like go outside of their comfort zone. They're really happy, and that's amazing. I would find it horrendous. I would hate it. But that she was living this really small life, and that so she decided to up sticks and break up with Gavin and up sticks and move to Brighton. And then she's applied for this job, and he basically puts her through this horrendous really bad interview where he like makes her do a Katie Price impression, and oh god, it's just like cringe, and like puts things on her head and throws a dildo at her, and you know, it's just like the worst things that could possibly happen to you, and that's what Jamie does. But yeah, we filmed it with my friend Rory Barrett, who is Clout News, and he does these brilliant satirical short films and adverts. And William Stone did something with him, and where they had a bench dedicated to Tupac in Worthing, and they had like a little plaque on it, so that was really funny. But yeah, try and watch all of them. But so I did that, and it was nice to do some acting again. But acting, because I'm used to doing acting for the stage, so I'm not used to doing film acting, right? So Rory taught me so much about just like the intricacy, like, because if you're doing a close-up, I move my eyes around a lot, and I'm like, obviously when I'm on stage and I'm doing stand-up, and I'm like, when I naturally talk, I'm like rah, 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 rah. And he was literally like, do less, less, no, less. And he's like, don't do that thing with your eye at the end. And I'm like, oh my god, what am I doing? And at the time when we filmed it last summer. I was in a play in the day. I was doing Midsummer Night's Dream in the park, which was amazing, with a little theatre company in Brighton, and I played Bottom. And so I was going from like, I'm a donkey, rah, 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 like in, you know, that's Shakespearean.
It's like he's in the room.
It's like, rah, 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 said forsooth yonder. So I was like rehearsing for that, or when I was in that, then I would go to film like the next day or later on. I'd film the World's Best Boss, where you're having to like completely switch like gears and go really, really small. And then I would do a gig in the evening where I'd have to be like in between, and I was like, oh my god. So I didn't know what was going on, but it's amazing when you've got a camera on you, like you don't realize how much your face moves involuntary, like when you say certain things. And like I would do like a weird thing with my eyebrow, which I had no idea that did. Like, do less, let your eyebrow move, do less. And I'm like,
Have you thus far had a moment? Thank you. It's my Shakespearean training coming through. Have you had a moment in time where you just realised that this is comedy is definitely for me? This moment justifies my commitment to it.
Yeah, I think it was definitely the turning point was doing So You Think You're Funny. Right. 100%. Because the feeling of I mean, it was great to win the semi-final and go through to the final. What an amazing feeling. And just every gig that I've smashed, and you go out and the audience love you, and the energy in the room is like palpable, and it's just one of those gigs where you're just like, oh yeah, smashed that. So You Think You're Funny was definitely a turning point, but then the gigs that have really like been like got better and better and better has made me go, this is what I want to do for a job. I love it. So I was doing like temping, just like I was really lucky that throughout the whole pandemic I've just been working. And then I got like a temp job, and then last August I decided to go full-time comedy.
Yeah.
And some people were like, during a pandemic, really? Like,
Yeah.
is that? And I went, well, there's no time like the present. And I mean, since then I've had to do like a bit of freelance stuff, and because weirdly I'm not like made of money and I have to pay the rent somehow. So I've done like a bit of, odd jobs here and there to try and keep afloat. But like I definitely think that doing a gig where you come off stage and go, yes, this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
This is it. You can't beat it. It's such a great feeling.
Marvellous. Now, before we wrap up, can you tell us how it is we can find out what gigs you're doing, what you're up to? How can we find out about you?
Yeah, so I'm not on Twitter.
What?
Dun, dun, dun. No, hate it.
No, I hate it too.
Absolutely hate it. Yeah.
I don't use it.
It's not for me. My partner's like, it's not for you, Kate. Don't worry about it. And I was like, no. So I'm on Instagram, and it's Kate McGann, which is from Hook, from Bangarang. Who knew? It's one of my favourite films. So I'm on Instagram and I put everything on there. And I've also got a Kate McGann comedian Facebook page. So I try and like update that. But my lovely friend Saffron is going to do me a website, which is, I think, is really exciting and so grown up. But hopefully I'm going to get that sorted. I mean, not that anyone would care, like who would care where I was, but I'm doing, I'm going to, I'm going to have a website and then try and update it and put like some clips on there and try and actually take it a bit more seriously. But I'm off to Edinburgh for the month as well.
Yeah.
I'm going the whole time, but I'm just doing spots here, there, and everywhere. So if anyone watching has a spot for me, let me know. I'd love it.
Listening.
Sorry.
Okay, I'll put links to those social medias in the show notes. So finally, can you summarize for me what comedy means to you in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, comedy means absolute pure joy. There you go. That's it's everything that I've ever wanted out of life.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Thank you for coming on today.
That's all right, Mark. Thank you for having me. See you soon.